Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, just welcome. Today we're talking about something pretty controversial in the Dragon Prince fandom, where opinions can differ extremely from one fan to another. Dark magic. A few days back I asked you here on YouTube and also people on Twitter for your opinion on dark magic, and I got a lot of really good comments. Based on what you told me in those responses, I want to discuss my opinion on dark magic today. Let's get started. Most people in the comments dislike dark magic or wouldn't generally support it. But a lot of these people also had the opinion that although dark magic is generally bad, it is a necessary evil. They made the point that although Claudia had to kill a fawn to heal Soren, she did so with a good intention in mind. The same would apply to the mission to retrieve the heart of the Magma Titan from Xadia. It may have been cruel, but generally served a good purpose. People also said that dark magic was in many cases selfless instead of selfish, because dark mages would risk their health to perform necessary spells in favor of humanity's survival. My response to all those arguments though is this: what about unicorns? To explain my point, let's read a passage from the novelization of Book 1, Moon. This technically will contain spoilers, although it's from the very beginning of the book, so it's more like a preview. Long ago, Xadia was one land, rich in magic and wonder. In the old days, there was only the deep magic, which came from the 6 primal sources: the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, the sky, the ocean. Every living creature in Xadia was born with the gift of magic, a spark inside connected to one of the 6 primal sources. From the greatest dragon to the smallest insect, magic flowed in their veins. But humans were different. Humans were flawed. They were born without this gift. Back in ancient times, the humans struggled to survive in the world, while the Xadian creatures thrived. Many humans perished from starvation. Others died fighting one another over the scarce resources. Unicorns were always the most selfless of the Xadian beings. There came a time when, filled with pity, they desperately wanted to help the struggling humans. After all, it was not the humans' choice to have been born without magic. But the first elves were wary. They warned the unicorns that kindness was not always returned with kindness. It would be a mistake to trust the species. After all, if humans were supposed to use magic, they would have been born with it. However, the unicorns' compassion ran deep and they could not be convinced. So, despite the elves' warning, the unicorns bestowed the ways of magic onto the humans. They gifted a few wise humans with powerful orbs called primal stones, which contained vast magical energy. Then they taught them to draw runes to attract and focus the stone's power, and to speak the ancient words used by dragons to release that energy as magical spells. Finally, humans had the ability to take care of themselves and end their own suffering. They fed their hungry, cared for their poor, and healed their sick. As they elevated humankind in other ways, learning about the world and the stars and the arts. They created songs and poetry and other beautiful things. But the elves were right about one thing: humans were unpredictable. While most were good, some were not. One human mage discovered a new way to use magic that was swift and facile, but also dangerous and intense. This method used the essence within magical creatures themselves to unleash incredible power. Some called it new magic, or the 7th source, but it came to be known as dark magic. Dark mages and their followers began to hunt and poach magical creatures throughout Xadia, for they needed fuel for their spells. A griffin's talon, a feather from a moon phoenix, any part of a creature where magic was concentrated. Perhaps the most valuable and sought-after prize of all was a unicorn's horn. Eventually, the humans hunted the unicorns until they disappeared completely from Xadia. The elves and the dragons were disgusted and outraged by what they saw. They were convinced the annihilation of humans was necessary and inevitable. But At the last moment, a daughter of the elven leader proposed a merciful compromise. She asked that humans be allowed to move and settle the lands to the west. Beneath the half moon, the Dragon Queen, who was called Luna Tenebris, rendered judgment that was both cruel and kind. Humans were cast out, but they were spared, and so the continent was divided in two. This gives us a completely different view on dark magic. Unicorns gifted humans primal stones to help them thrive, and they absolutely did. But then, it seems some humans got power hungry, and through the discovery of dark magic wanted more and more. The use of dark magic wasn't about humans surviving in a cruel world anymore. They had primal stones which seemed to get them through life very well. But dark magic was easier, maybe it was compelling because it seemed independent from magical beings like unicorns. Or maybe, as some of you also mentioned, dark magic enabled spells that were impossible or extremely hard to recreate using primal sources. Whatever the reason might have been, it doesn't seem like dark magic was necessary for humanity's survival when it was first discovered. With this knowledge, I also have an easier time putting myself in the shoes of elves and dragons, banning humans to the west. Some people complained that squishing a worm is a crime, but a dragon burning a village is okay. First of all, elves, dragons, unicorns, and humans seem to be the main sentient beings capable of consciousness we only really know from humans in the real world. 3 out of these 4 species were connected to arcana, which can be used for dark magic. Of course, elves and dragons will panic when they see an entire intelligent species much like themselves wiped from the face of the earth by humans for their magical abilities, even after they were the ones who helped humans survive in the first place. Squishing a worm isn't the most horrible thing in of itself, but it can be perceived as a stepping stone. If someone is willing to take the life of a worm for a bit of magic, will they hesitate to come after elves if they need more powerful and different magic? The answer is obviously no for some mages. Viren has horns of elves in his chamber. Claudia carries the eyes of creatures around with her. They use dragon horns, corrupt primal stones, actually kill and consume the magic of dragons. Elves and dragons learned that some humans don't know where to stop, and so they drew a strict line. Tolerating absolutely no dark magic was the safest for them. And calling elves hypocrites for tolerating dragons burning villages, but not a little bit of dark magic, is just ignoring the context in the storyline with Pyrrha and Rayla. We actually didn't see any elf defend what Pyrrha did. Even Rayla was shocked when she saw the village burn. The reason why she helped the dragon regardless is completely personal to her and has to do with her parents failing at protecting another dragon. She sees it as her own moral duty to help a dragon because she carries around the guilt of her parents' failure. Coming back to primal stones and unicorns though, I won't just look at what might have been had humans declined dark magic and called them stupid for using it in the first place, which it still is, but I have to look at reality and the present. In the situation humans are now in the story, is dark magic still so bad? The first question I would ask myself here is, couldn't they just use the primal stones they had before dark magic even existed? Unfortunately, the problem with this is, as far as we know, there are only very few primal stones left. I have a few theories as to why this is the case. For one, the primal stones are most likely a finite source of magic that goes weaker and runs out eventually with heavy use. The fact that there aren't any unicorns left that would be willing to just create new ones is the biggest problem here, which once again stems from dark magic obsessed humans driving them to extinction in the first place. Another possibility is that it has to do with something called the Mage Wars, the era after humans were banished to the west. At this point in time, we know very little of this event except that, quote, humans begin settling the western side of the continent, powerful mages begin rising as warlords, battling for resources and land. A lot of primal stones might have been destroyed during that time, or corrupted with dark magic, like we saw it happening with the Sun Primal Stone in Season 3. The fact is, primal stones are very rare and there's not a way anymore to create new ones. So, to help humans survive, is dark magic now justified? There were a few approaches to this in the comments. If the magical creature was killed respectfully, as a sacrifice, if the magic was used for a moral good, and the negative effects of dark magic were acknowledged, it could be acceptable. Some also compared it to meat consumption. A big counter-argument I always have to this is that dark magic is more than just killing a creature. Dark magic actively corrupts the user. It also consumes magical energy. In comparison, primal magic is a sustainable cycle as far as we know. It's like comparing coal power stations or gasoline usage in cars to solar energy and electric cars. We know which one is obviously bad for everyone and the environment. The difference between fossil fuels and dark magic is that our civilization generally needed these dirty, unsustainable resources as a stepping stone to renewable energy. Humans in the Dragon Prince universe already had a relatively sustainable and unharmful alternative to dark magic before it was even discovered. Speaking of corruption, let's take a deeper look into that. The most obvious indicator of dark magic being unsustainable and corrupting is the entirety of Catullus, at least the parts we saw in the show. There are barely any magical creatures and not one magical plant just out in the open, like in Xadia. Exceptions were the giant fish monster that the group encountered on their boat ride, and also the secret cave Claudia gets wisps from to perform a tracking spell, which is, like I said, pretty secret and hidden. And, of course, the Moon Nexus, which is protected by elves and its main function was disabled. The only reason it's located in Catullus is probably because it would be impossible to relocate the Nexus to a place in Xadia. It seems like humans rob the vast majority of the human lands from any primal energy through the use of dark magic. An even more disturbing aspect of the corruption is how it's possibly affecting the user directly. One thing I saw in the comments is that if something bleaches your hair white and makes you look like a corpse, it can't possibly be good for you. But something even more creepy to consider is the psychological impact of dark magic. Someone brought up that Viren was practically sacrificing his life for Erebus at the Sun Nexus and again at the Spire, where he then actually lost it, if only temporary. Now, if this even is a result of dark magic, or rather Erebus' manipulation skills, is debatable. But in the novelization of Book 1, we also learn that Viren saved his son, Soren, from an illness using dark magic, when he was still a little child, but years later, after more magic use, he was willing to sacrifice this same son to war, ready to transform him into a mindless killing machine. If that's not a dramatic change of mind, I don't know what is. The last topic I want to discuss today is something Sarai mentioned while sparring with Harrow.
That's going to take decades of hard work. There's no monster you can slay and solve all your problems. There's no shortcut. This is going to be a very slippery slope.
Dark magic definitely is a shortcut and can have negative consequences because of it. Because dark magic is generally always the easier way, its user can get used to it and not even consider alternatives. They will start to use it for their convenience, not out of absolute necessity. Claudia didn't have to rip wings off of fairies to bake magical fluffy pancakes. They would have been just fine without dark magic. And with some more work, she could have researched a way to make them fluffier without a fairy's body part. But that would have been actual work. My theory is that exactly this is also the reason why no human ever learned primal magic like Callum did. Dark magic was already available, easy, powerful, well researched. Why would anyone ever want to try anything else? The reason I believe this to be more a thing of inconvenience than inability is this interview with Aaron Ehasz and Justin Richmond, the creators of The Dragon Prince.
One of the first conversations we started having about Dragon Prince was like, what if there's this world where there's a slow and arcane way to do magic that takes years of learning and it's really, really hard, or you can crush a magic creature and turn it into a spell, turn it into a fireball. And
I know Justin just describes the basic idea they started with in this interview, not how it turned out in the actual show. But if we just look at Callum and dark magic, that is a pretty accurate description of what he's been through with this experience of both sorts of magic. And I don't see why that wouldn't be expanded to other characters in the future. In this situation, I see Callum as an inspiration to deviate from the convenient way to do magic and put a lot of work into learning it the hard way. Characters would now have a goal, a role model to look up to, because they know, in the end, it will be worth it. Of course, again, this is also just speculation because we just don't have enough knowledge about this topic yet. If you still haven't realized, yes, my opinion on dark magic is mostly negative. I think it has bad impacts on the psyche and surroundings of its users. It's not sustainable and wasn't necessary in the first place. It came from a place of power hunger and destroyed the alternative, sustainable source of magic for humans. Unicorns and with them primal stones forever. And maybe there's even another way around dark magic, like Callum proved. Dark magic may have been, in a few single cases, justified, but overall it is evil. In my opinion, if humans will continue its use like they did in the past, looking at Cthulhu, they will at some point either wipe out even more species of magical creatures, or get defeated by elves and dragons. Because the reality is, dark magic isn't being used as a last resort, with heavy regulation and respect to the magic it consumes and the culture behind it, like a lot of you guys proposed. In most cases, it's being used as a weapon, an easier and more convenient way to do things despite its consequences. Of course, future seasons might prove me very wrong. A lot of the things I am building my opinion on have not been specifically confirmed or are just speculations. But for now, this is my opinion. And that's the end of another video. If you like what you saw, you can leave a like, and if you didn't, which I can understand, you can leave a dislike. Also, comment with your opinion on dark magic, and maybe consider subscribing. We're almost halfway to 1,000 subscribers. Thanks for watching.